Good evening, and welcome to a panel discussion about Tri-Cities Opera's upcoming production of All Is Calm, The Christmas Truce of 1914. Over the next hour, we will talk to key members of the production, as well as local veterans, about this inspiring opera. We will also see performances from two resident artists from TCO. I want to thank everyone who is watching this live stream on WSKD's YouTube channel, and also the members of our studio audience this evening. Let's begin by introducing our panel members. We have Tri-Cities Opera General Director John Rizzoni, Dennis Thompson, a retired colonel in the U.S. Army and TCO Board Chair, Brandon Wright, the stage director of All Is Calm and professor in the Binghamton University Theater Department, Benjamin Margolius, a retired colonel in the U.S. Army and president of Southern Tier Veterans Support Group, Connie Studgen, a licensed social worker and a readjustment counselor at the Vet Center in Binghamton, and Tom Tate, retired technical sergeant in the U.S. Army and vice president of Twin Tiers Honor Flight Program. Tom is also the director of the Southern Tier Veteran Support Group. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and let's start with John Rizzoni. Can you give us a little background on this production and why TCO decided to perform it?
Well, I think we became aware of this production probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and as soon as I heard about what it was, I knew it was a story we wanted to tell. Tri-Cities Opera has been working really hard over the past decade to really engage with a broader community than the traditional opera audience in some ways, and also really tell the stories of our community and bring light to important issues in the community. And so part of that commitment has been programming pretty regularly operas that address veteran issues and support veterans by telling their stories and bringing light to their experiences. And so All Is Calm, while it does not, it's not a story about veterans, US veterans or soldiers, it was in World War I before the United States got involved in the war. While that is true, the story really, to me, says a lot about this interesting position we put our veterans and soldiers in, where there's this expectation of being a fighter and perhaps even a killer at some point, but also being human and with a great capacity for love. And so for me, just that sort of those polar opposites just made this such an interesting piece to me. And then of course the music is gorgeous, so we love that too. Yeah.
Absolutely, can't wait to hear it. Now, Benjamin and Dennis, question for you. How does the Christmas Truce of 1914 resonate with today's military community, and what lessons does it hold for us about common humanity in the midst of conflict?
Well, it resonates in a lot of different ways, and the perspective is where you come from, what your experience is. Let's face it, this was World War I. This was the beginning of the war. The Germans were young troops. The British were young troops. The Germans had a lot of camaraderie with the English. In fact, a lot had lived in England, a lot had married in England, and so they were more friendly with the British forces. And so they shared a common bond. And yet this was a trench warfare where they were fighting so close together. And it was miserable. If you've ever watched the movie, fairly well depicted what trench warfare was all about. And so while the leadership was obviously very upset with the event where the two sides got together because they had Christmas. Both of them celebrated Christmas, so they got together and had a little party. The leaders were very upset because they're supposed to be fighting a war and these are supposed to be enemies. But these were the beginning of the war, and today's war is totally different. Obviously, we don't have trench warfare anymore. There's only one example that I found in World War II where we had this kind of thing happen, and that was just one small event. But today, with all the different weapons that we have fighting from long distances, much more difficulties. I don't think we would see that again, but you have to place yourself at the time and place where it happened.
How about you, Dennis? You have anything to add?
Yeah, so as I was reviewing the whole scene, 1914, Christmas in the Trenches, that's what I was asking myself. How does this resonate with me, being a veteran from the 1980s and into the 2000s? Like Ben just said, totally different kind of warfare going on. It's not linear like it was back then. It's all around you. But the commonality I found between World War I, we go back to any conflict, Civil War, up to today, is the humanity that's involved there, and the fact that that these enemies that were just minutes or hours ago firing at each other. First time we ever used machine guns was in World War I, so a whole new death toll was taking place, the highest death toll up to that point in any conflict. They found the humanity to take a pause in all that death and destruction and come out of the trenches and come together and recognize the fact that the private on the German side, the private on the British side, were really there for the same reasons in their own mind. I mean, they were there to defend their country and carry out orders, but they still had some common bond. And that's what drew them out of the trenches together, I think, and obviously the fact that it was Christmas time. So that still resonates today for us.
Absolutely, thank you. And Tom, as someone with experience with both the military service and veteran support, what do you feel modern veterans might take away from the Christmas Truce story?
Well, I hope they take away the healing power of music. The really awesome thing about this story is when you hear it, they're all going to be singing Silent Night, but they're all going to be singing the same story, the same thing in their own language, and it's going to harmonize together beautifully. One of the most amazing things about music, because you'll see every USO show that goes overseas takes music with them. There's a reason for that, because music will take you out of the now and bring you to a different place. That's what the soldier needs. Every now and then you need to get out of where you are in this time and go someplace else, and music does that. So I hope they get that out of this.
Absolutely, and that kind of goes into the next question for you, Brandon and John, as far as the unique power. Can you speak to the unique power of All Is Calm as a theatrical and musical piece?
Well, I mean, one of the special things about this piece is that it's an opera company performing it, but it trims away some of the things that might be a distraction from the humanity of the story. This is 9 men singing a cappella. The text of the piece is words from the letters of the soldiers who lived this experience. One of the fun and interesting parts of this production right now is actually that we are working on dialect coaching and accent coaching so that basically each performer can really embody and give voice to the real people who live this experience. I think that's so special and powerful. And I think in a world where there are opposing sides, maybe not just in war, but in life, in all kinds of things, the power of this story comes from really knowing that if they can set aside those differences and be together and be human together, we can certainly all do that ourselves. And I think there are so many reasons why this story makes sense. It is grand, it's intimate. We're in a 200-seat theater for this performance, but that intimacy gives you the grandness of human emotion, and I think it really helps drive home just these experiences that really, who could imagine that? Yet it happened spontaneously, and I think it was a blessing for those people, and maybe gave them some hope, and we all could use a little hope.
Absolutely. And to you, Brandon, how do you think the storytelling and the music work together to bring to life the history of this truce and the experiences of the veterans?
I think they work together because life is set to rhythm, right? There's music in us, around us at all times, right? The whistle of a train or the roar of a garbage truck, right? There's music around us constantly. And so really all we're doing on the stage is elevating and celebrating real life and real people. And so the story set to music really just helps us to, as Tom said earlier, kind of just escape for a while, you know, to let our minds and our hearts go to these really fantastic places. And the journey of it is that we go all the way around the world to come back to ourselves. And I think that's really, really special.
Definitely special.
Yeah.
Thank you. Connie, from a mental health perspective, how do you think the art and performances like this one support veterans in the process of their own experiences and connecting with the broader public?
Well, what I've seen just from experience, a lot of the things that we do, for example, at the Binghamton Vet Center, we actually have a music group. They play guitars, they sing, and it's this brief time that they're together. It's not a big group, but it's something that makes them feel good. It makes them forget for the moment. We use, for example, yoga, and they have, one of my colleagues runs a yoga group twice a week, so there's also some involvement with music and relaxation that way. In therapy sessions, we also use music, things that are generally, I guess, ways to make the veterans forget, you know, for at least that brief moment, some of the things that they had to deal with or go through. Because what they have, it never really goes away. And I think that's a misconception with PTSD. They think, many people that aren't aware of what veterans go through, it's a lifelong battle. They have these demons that they live with every day, sometimes all night, and they look for things like music, for example, to try and find some solace in that they don't normally have.
Like the power of music. Yes. Brandon, as the director, I imagine there are some unique challenges with directing a production like this that combines live music with the historical narrative, especially one centered on real-time war events. How do you approach honoring these stories with authenticity and just any of the challenges of something like this?
You know, what my biggest guiding principle for the piece has been the word truce. Right? When I agreed to direct the piece, I looked up the definition of the word truce. And what struck me the most was the idea that it is an agreement for a period of time. That the second we enter a truce, there is a known end, right? It's bookended by, in this case, war. But in the case of the theater, there's a truce of sorts when we come into the theater, right? That we leave the world, the real world, to come in for an agreed period of time, knowing that it will come to an end and then we have to go back to the world, right? And so that has been sort of my North Star for the whole thing, is what happens in this period of time that we share together in the theater, right? What occurs inside of us and in the collected space for this period of time that we have agreed to share. And so it's the humanity, it's the music, all of those things that we just talked about. And as far as the challenge of it, my biggest challenge, honestly, is to get out of the way. Really, right? That the story is so rich because it comes from real people. And that's what we're attempting on stage, right? In art, in theater, is we're attempting life. And there's so much already in it that I constantly have to check myself and my ego, if you will, right? To make sure that I'm not giving it more than it wants. And it's such a beautiful story that the more I can pull back from it and let it do its own magic. It continues even to this point, you know, so close to opening. It's still showing me things that it just wants to breathe on its own. So I'm having to sit on my hands a lot. But it's you know, it's the right way to go for this particular piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to add that sensitivity is part of why you're here. You know, when I first met with Brandon, we had a great conversation, and I think I felt as the guy doing the hiring that Brandon could really do justice to this story, and it's been a blessing. You know, this is your first opera, which is awesome. I'm so pleased to bring you into the TCO family. You know, but your sensibilities really add something to this production, and I think. Also, just to bring out that this is really an ensemble piece. There is no star of this show. It is 9 men who are on stage most of the time, in and out, but, and each person shines, each person contributes. And I think whether that's this panel discussion, whether that's in a show, whether that's in the armed forces or in our world, there is something that is important that we all bring to it. And I think, you know, you mentioned you're stepping out of the way in the production, but I think you're actually, in a lot of ways, leading the way. And I think making the space for people to express according to their gifts is what makes this show so special. It makes it something where, you know, the whole is so much greater than the sum of the parts. So kudos.
Thank you. And expanding on what makes this piece special, how do you feel this production could foster empathy and understanding among audiences, especially for those who have little connection to military life or service?
I think
for the whole panel.
That's part of the journey that we have been taking as an ensemble. Another thing that was pretty important for me when I agreed to direct was the fact that I am actually was very unfamiliar with a lot of the story of not just the truce, but of World War I as a whole. And so I thought that I, as the director, should be the biggest advocate for audience members who share that perspective, right? So we've constantly been in search of the things that if you don't know war, you know this, right? If you don't know this language, you know the song, right? Or the mood of the song. So that we've constantly been in search of what lives inside of the piece that is universal, or that is the bridge between those of us who know and don't know, or who have the experience and don't have it. That's really been a mainstay in our process that I think will be very fruitful for the audiences. There's something in it for everybody. Yeah.
For Benjamin and Tom, as leaders in veteran support organizations, what are some of the ways you feel are most effective ways you've seen arts contribute to veterans' healing or well-being, and how can community members become more involved in this kind of support?
Well, we run into veterans every day. I mean, our organization that Tom and I work for cover 14 counties, 11 in the southern tier of New York and 3 in the northern tier of Pennsylvania. And the kinds of things that veterans go through need something to ameliorate some of the stress that they're going through. And so music, so well, and it really helps with mind control and with sanity and just keeping the family together, and that's really so important. And so we really like to support these kinds of things because it helps our veterans.
Tom?
Basically, anything that can take the veteran out of their head, as Ben was saying, tactile things, singing in a group, something that brings you into the now, drawing, writing, photography, anything like that, that is, you're still alone, but you're part of a group. It's a big thing, and it keeps people from going to dark places by being in the now. It really does help. And Connie is a big proponent of that also.
Right?
Yeah, I just want to add that, I think one of the things that this production brings the audience to a better understanding of veterans and what we go through is the script of this production is, as we said earlier, are the letters written by the soldiers that were there in the trenches in 1914. And these days, there are some stereotypes about veterans who have been in war. Everybody's got PTSD, not true. Those kind of things, everybody's troubled. There are a lot of great stories, but like the stories from 1914, veterans want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to tell their story. And that's what this play does, is it tells the stories of these individuals that were in the trenches in 1914. And in a lot of ways, even though the warfare was different, the conditions were different, those stories are the same that the veterans today have. So that's relevant.
Yeah, definitely, thank you. And Connie, as far as being a readjustment counselor, how do you think these kinds of art-based interventions and community theater projects can help in the readjustment process for veterans?
So, I think what sets the Vet Center apart from the main VA is that we do try to look for alternative ways of treatment. It doesn't always necessarily mean to be music. For example, a few years ago, I took a group of my ladies and we were doing mosaics. And at that brief minute, they did wonderful projects. Some of them would laugh and joke and sing. We have, right now I'm doing another group of veterans, lady veterans, and we are not doing a traditional group. We're doing adult coloring books. And it opens up, they do art, they're making beautiful pieces of work that they take with them. They forget, and they've made friendships now. We have, I guess, I've been in the system a really long time. Next year will be almost 30 years that I've been working with veterans. And I've gone the gamut from actually working with World War II veterans, Korean veterans, all the way up to now the younger generation of veterans. And like you were saying, they have the same, it's basically the same, they have the same symptoms. The causes are similar, but their display or how they actually learn to coexist with their symptoms are different. And vet centers really try to use alternative methods, including the arts and anything else we can throw at them to basically help them learn how to coexist in society.
Thank you. To think about the broader significance of All Is Calm today, for you, Dennis, we're at the 110th anniversary of the Christmas Truce. What do you see as that significance now as it relates to bringing this production to the community today?
Well, I think it's like I said earlier, I mean, the stories, although different conditions, the stories are the same, and whether it happened in 1914, 1942, or today, soldiers want to be, or service members want to be heard, veterans want to be heard, and we all have a story to tell. So bringing the Christmas Truce to the stage, I think helps even us, modern day veterans, current veterans, at least if we're not on stage telling our story, we're hearing our story told, and that's important.
Absolutely. And a question to all of the panelists, if you were to think about the context of the world and how there are still conflicts today, what message do you think All Is Calm holds for audiences, and what reflections would you hope they take home? We can work our way down as you think about it. I'll give you a little bit.
Okay, I have to go first. All right. I think for me, it is important that our veteran community feels supported. And I want to just take a moment and thank you for your service. What a blessing, and also thank you for your support, Connie. It's very important. The founders of Tri-Cities Opera were both veterans, Carmen Savoca and Peyton Hibbett. Of course, I have veterans within my family. I am blessed to not have been engaged in war of any kind. But I think, it's supporting the veterans, letting them know that we will tell their stories, that we are here to support not just the veterans, but the broader community, and create conversation between a variety of communities to make sure that these stories are not forgotten, because there's power in these stories, and also I think catharsis. So it's just a blessing to have the control of a company to put these stories in front of people who care. It's a blessing.
Yes, Brandon?
I think the biggest thing for me is what we've been talking about the whole time, the humanity in it, right? From any angle, right? From those of us who have not served, to look at service members not as a collective but as individuals, right? To see that every person still has a story, and for any ways in which we may find that we disagree with someone or hold a different perspective from someone, that this causes us to remember that we can still find common ground, the ability to connect with people who are not like us for whatever reason.
Connie?
I've been listening to what everybody's saying, and I guess because of who I am and what I work with, who I work with, I look at things kind of as a massive, basically a play station for anyone that's got a problem. You can have therapy and make it light, you can make it serious, but you have to always look at the fact that everybody has had a different experience. Everybody has to look at figuring out ways to try and trust the individual they're going to be working with. And so as a therapist, we have to come up with different ways. And we find that, or at least I find that, when I can employ different angles of the arts, or just not talk therapy, it always seems to offer any generation of veterans that little extra. We do all kinds of wonderful things. I think that's why I can't retire. I just really enjoy what I do with everyone, and it's a different atmosphere when you see a veteran just all of a sudden, it's like they blossom. You see them just become something they haven't maybe felt in years because of what they went through. And you know, one other year, we were fortunate enough to work with the local art people, and they came and did photography with us. They've done artwork, and they actually had a display on, I can't think of what it's downtown where they do the art walk. They displayed our veterans' artwork, and they felt so proud. And it was something they never thought they could do. They even talked me into it, and I'm not an artist at all. But it was just wonderful to see how different ways of helping veterans turns their life around. And so I guess that's my take on it.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Well, one of the common grounds I'm hearing up here, and I completely agree with, is embracing our differences through something common. This happens to be music. It could be anything we do, woodworking, art, anything. But embrace your differences, but the commonality is still there. These people were enemies. They were literally out to kill each other on either side. But through music, they came together. That's an amazing story. So I hope we can bring that home with us.
Benjamin?
Well, we see a lot of veterans that are conflicted, and it's woe is me, and nobody loves me, and everybody hates me. But the thing that this kind of music brings to them is they're not alone, that people are thinking about them, and that over time and over space, the same things have happened to other veterans, and they're not alone. And the important thing is that there are organizations out there that exist to help them get back and become productive members of the community.
Yeah, just a little bit different take on the question. So when I was reading about this again, my takeaway was, boy, this is really hopeful. You know, the enemies decided to stop for Christmas Eve and come out of their trenches and play some soccer together, share some meals, sing some Christmas carols. And that's hopeful. And that's what you hold on to. But right before that and right after that, they went back to killing each other. So you kind of got to, sort that out in your head. And by the way, this just didn't happen in one little battlefield. It happened all across the Western Front. And like Ben started out today saying, the leadership wasn't very happy about it, because you had soldiers and young officers, probably lieutenants out there, making these unilateral decisions. Let's stop fighting for a while and meet up with our enemies. So there's hope in there, even though there's a lot of messy stuff going on. My takeaway was there's hope.
Hope. All right. Thank you. And we will hear more from the panel shortly, but now it's time to highlight two of the talented resident artists from Tri-Cities Opera. Here are Kate Johnson and Daria Narimanova, accompanied by John Cockrell on piano, performing 4 songs, beginning with a medley of Over There and Your Grand Old Flag by George M. Cohen.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hoist the flag and let her fly, like true heroes do or die. Pack your little kit, show your grit, do your bit. Soldiers to the ranks, from the town and the tanks. Make your mother proud of you, and to liberty be true. Over there, over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums drum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't be back till it's over, over there. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you reign. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true under red, white, and blue, where there's never boast or brag. But should all acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. snow melted, except right in front, where the sun never hits. Must the winter come so Night after night, I hear the hungry deer wander weeping in the woods, and from his house of brittle bark hoots the frozen owl. Must the winter come so in the forest, neither dawn nor sunset marks the passing of the days. It is a long winter Must the winter come so Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, alles schläft, einsam wacht, nur das traute, heilige Paar. Holder Knabe in lockigen Haar, schlaft in himmlischer Ruhe, schlaf in himmlischer Ruhe. Silent night, holy night,
thank you so much to Kate Johnson and Daria Narimanova for that great medley of performances. Please give them one more round of applause. That was wonderful. Thank you. So we have a little bit more time with our panel, and this is a question for all of you. What future collaborations between the arts and veteran support would you like to see, whether through theater, music, or other creative endeavors? So, question to the audience, but in general, what would you say is looking forward? What other collaborations could happen? And then for you, John, looking forward, what do you hope is the legacy of this production, both for the theater company and for the community at large?
I don't see any offerings out there, so I'm gonna take it a little bit. I think there are so many ways that we can work together, and so many stories to tell. There's such powerful stories told through music, sometimes not told through music, told through paintings, told through photography, told through even woodworking, all these different things. I mean, I think there's something special about the care that goes into art, and that the work is never done, and that there's always a little more you could do to tweak it, make it better, and it can grow with you and change with you. And I think sort of one of the things we hit on is that this is not the story of our current veteran community, our living veteran community, but it rings true. And I think great art does that, great music does that, and whether Tri-Cities Opera is doing that for the veteran community or other communities locally, it's important to us that we're telling the stories of our community. And I think, I guess the legacy for this, my hope is that it's just so wonderfully put together and appreciated, and that all the pieces come together in a way that we just keep doing, maybe not this show, but these kinds of collaborations for the next 75 years of Tri-Cities Opera. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other thoughts to add as we wrap up?
Share that I got involved with the Tri-Cities Opera a couple years ago. Just happened to be looking at the paper, and they had a call out for veterans who thought they could sing, or something like that.
You can
And,
sing, Dennis.
So they were doing The Rising and the Falling. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but it was an opera with John. Correct me if I say misspeak here, but the United States Army Field Band and choir were involved, and then it was this story about a soldier's experience in Afghanistan and coming home and dealing with those experiences. And so we trained up the two veterans that showed up to the call. We trained up and got our 15 seconds of fame on stage at the end of the opera. But it's just a sign of John's efforts with the opera company to get veterans involved. I mean, we did this a couple years ago. We're doing this year, and I would just encourage more operas that recognize the veterans. That's all. Thank you.
I would just add that one of my hopes is that, you know, right now we're producing shows, and that one did allow us to have veterans participate in the production. This one is not necessarily geared that way, but I think finding opportunities across all of our community, it really is important to me, and I think to the art form itself, to not just teach people to watch it and appreciate it, although that's important, but how do we inspire creativity? How do we create the next generation of not ticket buyers, but opera creators, music creators, artists? And I think there's absolutely a place for many communities in that, but certainly the veteran community. And I think whether it's the pain of experiences, the joy, there's so much art inside our veterans. And I'm so encouraged that we get to be a part of that, but also that they're just wonderful people who are working to bring that out. It's just a beautiful thing.
It definitely is beautiful. And with that will wrap up our discussion this evening. I want to thank all of the panel members and the wonderful performers from Tri-Cities Opera for making this event possible. Thank you to our audience members as well for joining us this evening. A reminder that you can see a performance of All Is Calm, the Christmas Truce 1914, next weekend, November 15th through 17th at the Tri-Cities Opera Center. Please visit their website, tricitiesopera.com, for ticket information, and a reminder that Veterans Appreciation Night is November 16th. For everyone here at WSKG and Tri-Cities Opera, thank you so much for watching, and have a great evening. Thank you.